I meant to include in my intro to this video that I wanted to apologize for those of you who have started building this trailer along with me and have been waiting for this part of the build series. I took sick and life gets in the way sometimes of these videos. I never planned on doing it this way. What I should have done, hindsight's 2020, is recorded all these videos and then started posting them. But it is what it is. I'm starting to feel a little better. Still got a touch of the cold. But I feel that you guys deserve to have the rest of this build series. So as you can see, I'm taking my tape and I'm kind of splitting the difference between the heads of the rivets, and this will allow me to clearly put my hole locations, my marks for the hole locations rather, in the center of the tape as best as I can. I'm not going to completely cover the rivets, as that's going to give me kind of a reference point on where to put my straight edge. And what I'm simply just going to do is I'm going to take a straight edge and kind of put it in the middle of the hole on each of the rivets, and then I'm going to draw my line on each across. These don't have to be perfect. But you do kind of want them in, you know, a straight line. Now, as mentioned, I'm going to take a straight edge of some sort. And I'm going to draw my lines, taking my straight edge and going from rivet to rivet. I'm going to carefully draw a line. Oops, kind of moved. Looks good to me. You can also take your straight edge and butt it up to the edge of your rivets. Do that on both sides and then measure, divide your measurement in half and then do your lines. Give you an example here. So we got 2 lines here, as you can see. And then from there, I would just take a measure, a ruler of some sort. And I got 7 millimeters, so 3.5 millimeters. 1, 5, 4, about 3.5. It's kind of a slower way to do it, but probably a more precise way. 4. And then from there, and just do a cross reference. Looks pretty good to me. But for the speed of this video, I'm just gonna go right down the middle. As mentioned, we have to do the front. I'm just gonna get that turned around, make life easier for myself. Make sure I'm going off the correct rivets. All right, that's not going to line up for some reason. What's going on there? Maybe that will. Split the difference. Shorter piece of metal. No, I keep getting the same line. Well, I guess that second. Now that you got your lines all marked out, you're going to need to take a tape measure. I wouldn't go off of my measurement on this because my deck might be a little bit more different than yours in regards to, you know, human error and whatnot. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to measure your deck, and then, you know, go across from each of your cross members and then find your center. And then so in this case I'm going to have what does that work out to? It's 234 millimeters, and then I'm going to divide that number into 2. The number I get is 117 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is measure 117 millimeters in. And when I do my measurements, I'm going to measure in from the same side of the deck. This way it puts all my line nice and straight. If you were to measure off of each side, if you have any error in your measurement, you could have a hole here, a hole here, a hole here, and so on. So it's important to go off the same side. You can go from the one side, do your measurement once, go to the other side, do your measurement once, and then draw a line if you want. That's up to you. Myself, I'm gonna do each one, and then I'm gonna see how that pans out. Another 17. Just gonna cross-reference. That looks pretty good to me. Should have done it closer to the line. 16. 117. The front one's already done. Don't really have to do that one. .34, so we're good. So I've gone ahead and I marked out all my center holes where they're going to be. I got that one actually in the wrong spot now that I think about it. Just kind of freehand that one. Now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your axle, and then you're going to want to measure, see here, you're going to want to measure the center of the hole here to the center of the hole here. Or you can go on eBay and get the actual measurements from those, or for those hole locations. Myself, I'm using the widest axle. If you're using that same axle, you can use the following measurements. The number that I get is 39 millimeters. So what you're going to do is you're going to measure 39 millimeters from the center line to the left, and then 39 millimeters from the center line to the right. And you're going to do that for all your cross members. If you want to, at this point, now that you got all that lined up, you can just do the second last rib and then your front rib, and then put a straight edge across and then transfer your lines. I think I'm going to measure off of each of the lines just for the sake of mind. I said 39 millimeters. See here. Now that I got the 2 or the 3 lines there, I'm going to just give it a quick measure and cross-reference everything. I got 79 millimeters and I'm good to go. So as you can see, I now have my 3 hole locations done for all my cross members, including my front rib. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a straight edge. In this case, it's just going to be a section of my C-channel. Actually, no, rather, I have a piece of flat bar here. And I'm just going to cross that across from each of the lines. And then I'm going to transfer all my, or complete all my crosses. As you can see. Before you go dimpling each of these, take a measuring a ruler or whatever and double check all your lines. Make sure you're happy with everything, which I am. You could even take your axle and make sure, not sure if you can see that here, I'll move it over one more, and make sure that your crosses are going to be lined up with your holes, which mine are. And what that's going to do, when you, on the bottom side, you're going to take your rail and you're going to come up through and you're going to be centering that over top of those holes. And then after, you're going to drill the hole, transfer the holes to the centers of your cross members or your C channels. And that once you pop your rivets in, that's going to hold that to the trailer. Keep in mind, when you're doing your dimpling, make sure you're putting it in the right spot. As in the end, there's no going back. And that was good. And I'm going to do all of these. I'm not going to bore you guys to death. But just a reminder, make sure you're putting your point right onto the cross of your crosshair, and just take your time. So now that I got my trailer completely dimpled for all my hole locations, I'm going to give you guys a reminder that I did not do this last rail, and there's no need to put any more rivets into that back rail. So you should have 3 hole locations in the center from your front to the second last rail. It's now time to come in with a drill. I'm going to try and use my drill press because I'd like to keep these holes straight. The center, I may or may not be able to do that from front to back. Time will tell. I'm going to start off with my 1.5mm drill bit, or center drill. I believe it's a center drill, and I'm going to drill out each of these holes, and then I'm going to bring them to size immediately after. Okay, so as I had thought, my drill test is not going to be deep enough so that to reach to these middle holes. So what I'm going to have to do is drill these by hand. I've already done that first one there, but I can reach the 2 outer holes on each of my cross members. What I did was I took a sheet of wood, I screwed it to the deck to help support the deck of the trailer, help keep it level with my drill. And now I'm going to drill each of the outside holes, both on the left and the right, and then on the center holes I'll come back in with a hand drill. I have chucked up my 1.5 millimeter center drill, and I'm going to start out by drilling out the 2 end holes. I'm going to carefully line everything up to the dimples that I've already put into the cross members, or the front L channel rather. Let's see here. I failed to bring the top deck up closer to the drill bit. This way I'm not bringing my Q down, or my quill down too far. As you can tell, I'm still got a touch of this cold. The medication's kind of got me a little out to lunch here. I'm going to bring the drill bit over top of that center punch. I'm going to drill in that first hole. As you can see, it's within the crosshairs. I'm now going to come over to the second hole. I'm using a center drill just for the rigidity of the shaft. A center drill has a thicker shaft, so it keeps your drill bit from wandering around, and then it has a tapered portion which will bring it to a different size. In my case, I'm just using the first portion of the bit. I know that I'm not drilling completely through. If you're using a actual 1.5 millimeter drill bit, feel free to drill all the way through. As you can see, I now have the 2 holes drilled. I'm going to continue on moving down the framework. I'm using a steel deck on my trailer, so it's going to be a little bit harder drilling through these. If you're using a wood top deck or an aluminum top deck, then you'll find that your bit is going to go through a little bit easier than mine. Not sure how much noise this is going to make. I'm going to drill 1 hole, and then I'm going to bring you back after I finish drilling out the rest to this first 1.5 millimeter size. As you can see, I got that one now pre-drilled. I'm going to bring you back after I have the rest of these drilled out.
Just a reminder to make sure the flutes of your bit are nice and clean as you move along. Otherwise, especially if you're using a regular drill bit, your drill bit may wander. At this point, I now have all my holes drilled with the exception of the 2mm ones. I was able to reach with my drill press to these inside ribs. I just have to hand drill these two. So I'm just going to move along. I'll do those after. And I've removed my center drill. I'm now going to start using my 1.5mm drill bit to finish drilling out these holes. The center drill wasn't quite long enough to drill through. And then I'm going to follow through with a 1/8 inch drill bit in all these holes. I'm just going to come in and finish drilling out these two inside crossmember holes on the top deck, and then from there I'm going to hand drill these other two holes off camera, and then I'll bring you back to drill out the finished size hole, which is going to be 1/8 drill bit. Seem to be having troubles here for some reason. So at this point, I'm now going to come through with the 1/8 inch drill bit. Again, I'm using 1/8 inch top rivets. So I'm going to finish drilling out my hole sizes to the 1/8 inch drill bit diameter. Bring my deck up a little bit higher there. Too high. Yeah. There we go. And like I said, I'm going to finish drilling out all my holes to the 1/8 inch drill bit. I've gone ahead and drilled out the two middle ones, and let me tell you, I'm happy I have a drill press. I just wish it was a little bit deeper. with the bigger drill bit, it's important to make sure that your drill bit is clear so that it doesn't walk. It shouldn't walk now that you have a pilot hole, but it doesn't hurt to make sure your flutes are clear. So at this point, I now have all my holes drilled with the exception of these 2 holes. I had to drop my deck and put in these risers so that I can support the deck flat on my drill press. I'm going to finish drilling out these 2 holes, and then after we're going to ream the bottom side of the deck or use a file just to clean up the holes. Don't believe that drilled all the way through. And there we have it. All my holes are now drilled out on my top deck. Just going to flip this upside down. At this point, you can remove all your masking tape. You no longer need those for any further steps of this this trailer deck build. As mentioned, I now have all my holes drilled out. I'm just going to take a file, clean up the bottom sides of each of these holes, and get them flat again so that when I pop a rivet in, as well as have my C-channel, just use that for an example, it's going to sit down flat. Doesn't take much work to clean these up. I'm going to get these all cleaned up and I'll bring you right back. Okay, so now that I got the trailer all flat for the holes and whatnot, it is now time to come in and start creating the main framework for the chassis. So what we're going to do is we're going to require the 2 longer rails. I believe they measure, here, take a tape measure. These guys measured approximately 435 millimeters in length. And what it is that we are going to be doing is we're going to be creating 2 components that look similar to this. One's going to be for the left and one's going to be for the right. So this bend will be done on the opposite direction on the other side. And that's what's going to create the framework for your tongue. And I'll pull in bring this other trailer in for an example. As you can see, there's the rails, and it comes into a bend and just meets up to that center channel. And then afterwards, what I will be doing is taking a piece of metal and then riveting everything all together. and then that makes that extremely strong. So to start this, the information that you're going to require is taking your rail. You're going to, from the outside edge, you're going to measure approximately 50 millimeters in, and then you're going to do a line here, and then you're going to measure in 9 millimeters on the opposite side, and then from there you're going to measure another 29 millimeters, and then that's and then you're going to cut your V's out, and that'll help, or that's going to give you the shape that you're going to require to complete your bend. So let's get that going. You're going to be doing this twice, but in opposite directions on each rail. So to do this, I'm going to take my masking tape, and I'm going to tape all 3 sides. Don't worry about the overhang, because what we'll do is we'll take a file and we'll clean off the excess tape. And you're going to do this on both your left and right rail, just on one end. I suppose I could have bent this one over, but it is what it is. I have to apologize to you guys for the extreme delay in getting this portion of the video out. I caught a cold, pretty heavy cold there a couple of weeks ago. About 3 weeks, it feels like a month ago now. And then I thought I had it shaken, so I stopped taking the medication. And of course, it come back with a vengeance. I got it again. And then after that, during that, I guess, I had a couple away trips for work to Ontario, and that, you know, I try to anticipate those being a week long, but you know, you take the work as it comes. So if the office calls you up and says, "Listen, I need you to do more work while you're out there," you kind of have to do that. It's his truck. He's kind of got you. And yeah, so there we have it. Still got a touch of the cough, but I'll take it. You know, sure beats having the migraines that came with this cold. Terrible cold. I have 2 components that are all taped up, ready for our layout. Get rid of this excess tape piled up here. Okay, so when you're laying this out, remember that you're going to do the opposite side on the second part with your layout. Bringing in the specs again, I'm going to bring my compound square, or combination square, sorry. And I'm going to start off with 50 millimeters. There we go. And then I guess I'm going to take each rail, put an O on the outside, what I intend to be the outside. This way I know this is going to flip over, this is going to be over here, this is going to be over here. So, anyhow, so that I'm marking the correct sides. Alright, 50 millimeters, which is, let's see here, my 50 millimeters. And that's going to be the line that you do your bend on. 50 millimeters. Okay. And then on the opposite side, so on the inside, you're going to mark out 9 millimeters, and then after that, you're going to mark out another line that's 29 millimeters off of that. Setting up my combination square for 9 millimeters. There we go. And then after that, we're going to do our diagonal lines. So we now need to mark out 29 plus 9, that equals 38. That'll get you in the ballpark area of where this next line is supposed to be. Alright. So now that we got our sides all laid out, we now have to mark out, do our layout for our, let's see here, for our diagonal lines. Take a straight edge of some sort. And I'm just going to, alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my straight edge and I'm going to put it up at the edge of this line here, and then I'm going to bring it all the way to the edge of the rail, and I'm going to do that on both the rails for the edge. Have it. And now to mark out the opposite side, get rid of that. So again, this is where the line is. That's where I'm going to cut right there. And this one we're actually going to be continuing. Our cut all the way around. So you can take that 50 millimeter line and bring it all the way around to the other side. I'll use the combination square to finish that off. Transfer the side lines to the top. To make it easier. And then, as mentioned, I'm going to pull out my combination square, bring that back to 50, and then I'm going to transfer that line all the way around. Terrible. Okay. There we have it. So one side you're going to have 3 lines. The top side you're going to have 2 angled lines plus a straight line, and then the outside edge you're going to have 1 line. So when we do our cut, we're going to be cutting the little triangles out. Now these little pockets here, they can be a little tricky to cut. I'm going to use a hacksaw. If you got a Dremel tool, that might be easier for you. But I find the Dremel tool is, it can be a little cumbersome.
You know, you can get your cuts not quite straight. I find I do a better job with a hacksaw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these cut out, and then I'll come back after they're all cut out. I figure it's worth mentioning that if you're going to use a hacksaw to start your cut with your component flat on its side. It is cut down just deep enough, you know, maybe about the thickness of the blade. And then from there you'll be able to tilt your hacksaw. Use this as an example. You cut down straight, and then after you get your cut line established, then you can tilt your hacksaw and start cutting in on an angle. I find that that helps me a lot to establish my cut where I want my cut. I also should have mentioned that when you're doing this cut for the inside pocket, you don't want to cut all the way. You want to cut just to the outside, the outside inside edge, if that makes sense. So this edge, you want to cut to that. Don't cut into it, otherwise it's going to weaken this bend. So you cut, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming, and then once you get to about the thickness of this material here, you stop and then you cut, and then you'll be doing your bend. So now, as you can see, I have my left and right chassis rails notched. I do have to take it, bring them to a sander or a file and clean up the front edges. As I don't know if you can see, it still has the flat edge there, and what we need is that to be tapered to match that taper there. And then on the inside pockets, I didn't cut completely all the way. I cut a portion of the way, and then I kind of focused, and then I kind of bent that piece out, you know, rocked it back and forth until the aluminum broke itself, and that so now it's left a little bit of a blemish there. I need to file that out so that when we do the fold, nothing's going to interfere. But before we do the bend, it is going to be time to move on to drill in the holes in the sides to receive your leaf spring, I guess, mounts, the risers for the bed. And what's going to happen is you can take 2 of these per rail, and you can sandwich them together, put some clamps on those, and then drill your holes. I'll give you the measurements where you need to put your holes here very soon. So let me get these 2 rails all cleaned up, and we'll move on forward. So at this point, you can now see that I have a sharp edge on the outside edge. I've cleaned up everything as best as I possibly could for my folds there, and my 2 rails are the same length. If for whatever reason your rails, like your cuts, don't line up rail for rail, check your other end. If it's a little bit longer on this end, just clean up this end, bring it down to the same length. Or if you have a discrepancy somewhere in here, then you'll have to use your best judgment to match try to get this portion here to match the opposite side. Not so much this portion here, it's this portion here. Anyhow, we got the rails all laid out. We got them notched. It's now time to get into the actual, you can remove your tape as well if you want. It's now time to get into the actual layout for your leaf spring suspension. Okay, so just to give you guys a recap of what's going on in regards to the
the risers for your suspension, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your, well, you don't have to put your rails in. This is just an example. Your risers are going to fall into the C-channel, and it's going to butt up to the tail end of your C-channel, like so. And it's going to sit flush with the edge. And then we're going to be drilling holes for our through rivets, as well as taking, let's see, do I have any leaf spring components there? Nope. Open up. These are the leaf springs that I'm going to be using. These are sold RC four-wheel drive, or yeah, RC four-wheel drive, as well as Amazon, eBay, whatnot. I try to get the RC four-wheel drive ones because I find the other ones, the springs aren't as durable. We're going to need 2 swing shackles, I guess you would call them, and then 2 sets of your shackle mounts. These are your stationary mounts for your leaf spring suspension. And how I'm going to set it up is so that it swings, the swing swings to the back. And I'm going to do my stationary up on the front of the rail. So let's get these rails pulled out, get the table cleared off, and then we're going to start doing our layout on the rails themselves, or the risers, sorry. I'm just bringing in the trailer that I have already fabricated. We're going to be copying the measurements off this trailer. I've had 0 issues with the suspension trying to bind up on me whatsoever. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the measurement for the rails themselves, where the holes are going to be, and carry on. Take the spade out of my combination square. I'm going to get this measurement in millimeters. So I will probably, let's see here, I need a measurement from hole to hole on the inside of approximately 117 millimeters for spacing. And to move that side to side. Alright, so what I mean by that is we're going to have our leaf spring shackle that comes up. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera there. Like that. As you can see, I'm an artist. And then you're going to have your swing shackle that comes up like that. And right here to here is 117 millimeters. Center on center. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to bring my deck back into place. I'm going to kind of dry fit everything. I'm going to have my axle kind of resting on the rails themselves, or the leaf springs. Let's see here. So, where do I want the axle?
Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my axle so that the center of the tire is right below the third last cross member on this. It looks like it's about 60% of the trailer. I tried to go to 60-40 on these on a single axle trailer, and I think that looks good there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure. I'm going to take the risers out. That's where I want my stationary bracket to remain, and then I'm gonna mark this out, do the layout, and then I'm gonna measure off this the right side hole towards the back, 117 millimeters, and then that's where your next hole is going to be for your bolt. So because we got two pieces here, we don't really need the second piece there. And because we're going to cover this, you can go ahead and use a scratch awl. If you want to use masking tape and pencil to draw your lines, you can go do that as well. You can use just pencil. It seems to work on fairly well on the aluminum surface. Okay. Now that I kind of got that laid out, I'm going to take some sort of a clamp. Actually, no, I probably can do this by hand here. There we go. Okay, so now that I got the first stationary bracket situated, I'm now going to measure off from the center hole, or the center of that hole there, as best as I can. You know, keep in mind this is a floating swing shackle, so it doesn't have to be bang on 117. If it's 118, you'll be all right. It's 116, it's not a huge deal. Try not to go inward if you can avoid it, because it could, when your suspension compresses, if this is too far forward, it could force this to lock up. You don't want that. All right, so 117 millimeters, I said. Which puts us for that. Around there. And then for your next crosshair line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my combination square and I'm going just to split the difference on the depth of that hole there. Looks pretty close there. Maybe I'll go a little bit more. Works out to be 1, 2, about 3 millimeters deep. And that looks like it'll work. Okay, so you're going to do your depth. It's going to be about 3 millimeters deep. And then on the back side, remember 117 millimeters from that hole there to that hole there, or coming off the back plate.
get this combination square put together properly. Said in the beginning of this build series I need to get another combination square, and that is definitely the truth. Okay, so measurements: 3 millimeters deep, and off the back edge of the riser you're going to have a crosshair approximately 32 millimeters deep from here to there. And then I don't think I can measure this, I don't have big enough, but remember it's 117 millimeters from that crosshair to that first hole, the center on center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of each side. I'm going to sandwich these together after I take a center punch and center punch each of these holes. I'm going to sandwich, say, the two outer brackets in case there's any discrepancies. So these are pretty close. Might be about a half a millimeter difference between the two. And I'm going to butt the back edges together. This way, they you know, it's okay if one's a little longer this way. No big deal. If you're a perfectionist, you can always clean these up to the point where they're all the same length. But again, this is an RC trailer, so I'm just going to sail with this. So I'm going to center punch each of these holes. I'm going to clamp these together. This is where double-sided tape comes in real handy. You put double-sided tape together, you put it together, and then you use alcohol to clean it up after. And then I'm going to drill my holes. And these holes are going to be, I believe 3 millimeter holes. Let's see here. I'm going to get a caliper out. Yes, after using my screw gauge, it's a 3 millimeter screw. So you're going to drill it out to 3 millimeters for the rigid bracket. And then you're going to go to, I think it's 4 millimeters. 4 millimeters for the floating hole. If you have a section of 4 millimeter brass tubing, I like to put a little brass shim on these. That becomes the wearable part. But if you don't have brass tubing that has a 4 millimeter outside diameter, 3 millimeter inside diameter to accept the screw, then you can go with just a 3 millimeter hole there as well. If you don't have the brass, then this is kind of going to float around. Not a huge deal. Myself, I got the brass tubing here somewhere, so I'll be going with brass tubing for shims. Okay, so now I got my drill press all set up. I got my two outside rails all sandwiched together. They've been dimpled in the holes. Again, 117 millimeters from your last hole to your middle hole, and then from there, your bracket will depict where the next hole is. I'm just going to drill this off the side of my table. I've already checked for clearance, and I think we're good there. I'm just going to move that camera out. I keep pushing it towards the table for some reason. There we go. Let the drill bit kind of figure out where it wants to be. And here we have it. Again, I'm using a 3 millimeter drill bit. I'm going to drill all the way through.
take a file to the back side of this, clean it up. There's the file. Make sure my drill bit is nice and clean. And I'm going to drill out the stationary holes, or the holes for the stationary bracket. Again, I'm going to allow the drill bit kind of figure out where that's going to be challenging. I'm going to swing my table to the middle. There we go. This will give me a more rigid platform to work off of. I couldn't do that on the one side because the bracket or my clamp wouldn't allow it. Spin my spin the drill bit. Ooh. I don't know if you guys saw that. Must have a dirty drill bit or something. That drill bit. Wanted to walk something fierce there. Let's try that again. I'll clean up that hole. And then drill out the last hole. Again, doing the same thing. Let the drill bit kind of tell me where the piece needs to be. Spin the drill bit 90 degrees. And you're happy there. Okay, now that we got 2 of the 4 brackets all cleaned out, or drilled out, holes all cleaned, I can now separate these, and then I can marry them back up to the brackets that are going to go. They're going to pair up with. Make sure the screw works in all the holes. They do. And let's see here. Take a bracket there for an example. Stationary. And as you can see, the holes line up nicely. The swing arm. It's going to work perfectly. It's going to go this way though. Alright, so I'm going to separate these. I'm going to marry them back up to the original, the other brackets that they're supposed to be married to. And I'm going to repeat, I'm going to use these as a drill guide for the other 2. I'll bring you back after I get everything all drilled out. And then we're going to place these into the rails themselves. And then we're going to do our layout for drilling the through rivets that captures everything together.
Okay, now there we have it. We now have 2 sets of our risers complete, all drilled out, ready to be dropped into our C channels. And again, what we're going to do is we're going to butt the ends up to the edge, and then we're going to drill out probably 3 holes, one here, one in the center, and then one on the end, and that's going to capture this. And then if you ever want to, for whatever reason down the road you want to put a bigger tire on, you drill out your rivets. You'd have to drill out the rivets that captures this to your deck, and then drill out your rivets, and then you can pull these out and then get a thicker plate and just copy these hole locations onto your taller plate. Let's say you decided to go with a 2.2, you probably need a 2-inch riser versus this. I think this is 3/4 if I remember correctly, and that'll help give you your extra height that would be required for your suspension and your travel and whatnot. Anyhow, I'm going to get the drill press moved off the side. We're going to get ready to do a little bit more layout work onto these rails, and bring the drill press back and do some more drilling. Okay, as you can see, I kind of got a basic mock-up of how this trailer suspension is going to be, the chassis itself, whatnot. Things to consider if you have changed the length of your trailer any, and you've added different cross members, and maybe your cross members are in different locations than mine for whatever reason. Things to consider when you're drilling out your holes for your rivets are your cross member locations. They're going to have rivets coming through, so you can't necessarily have a rivet going through to capture your risers right over top of your cross member. So if your cross member happens to fall right on the edge, you'll have to relocate your rivet that's going sideways inward a little bit, and vice versa. Like on the rear, you'll see that there is a cross member right on the very end, and if you're building along with me, yours should be the same. So I can't put that rivet right here. I will have to move it in so it just falls in just shy of that cross member. And then my middle one, again, it's going to have to be offset from the cross member, and so on. So to do that, I'm just going to take a piece of tape and get rid of this. And you don't have to use tape. As you've seen earlier, the aluminum does mark fairly easily with a pencil. And I'm just going to put it on the edge there of just the aluminum plate. Tear it off. Doesn't have to be perfect. Oops. And I'm going to pop that down. I'm going to make sure the edge of my risers are flush with the edge of the C channel, and the C channel is flush with the edge of the back side of the cross member. So from there, I'm just going to take a section of my combination square, if I can find it. And I'm going to transfer the locations to where my cross members are. As you can see, I'm buttoning up my combination square to the edge of the cross member, holding things tightly. Again, making sure everything's all up to the edge. Then I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to do an X where the cross members fall. This way, it's kind of gives me a mental note of where not to drill out my hole. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the first cross member or C channel. Then I'm going to take, making sure all my holes are lining up, and making sure that the single hole is on the rear side of the back of the rail. So you can see, get this out of the way. And then I'm going to drop those into the channel. And then I'm going to put a clamp on it somehow. Get those held together real tight. Squeeze it that way. This way, when I do drill the holes, it can lay flat. I'm just going to force those downward. I'm going to put 2 clamps on it, one on each end. Okay, this one here, I'll probably have to move that a little bit. Oh, trumpets. To allow for the layout and the drill bit. Okay, so now that I got all that set up, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to measure half the thickness of the C channel minus the thickness of the bottom edge. I guess it's the same all around, so you can go the thickness of the edge to account for the bottom plate. So what you want to do is you want to split the difference of just the rise from here to here, and that's going to give you your hole location. Okay, so just taking a sample of my C channel. Remember, if you're building along and you're using the same components, this is your measurement is going to be in millimeters. 11 millimeters deep. 11 millimeters, just shy of 11 millimeters deep. So 5.5 millimeters is where you're going to measure down to. And I'm going to use my caliper for that.
or not my caliper, my combination square rather. I don't know why I keep calling it calipers, my goodness.
So now that you got your hole locations or your cross member locations marked out on your riser, you can take that out. You can now take a piece of tape and on each of the rails, starting from the back side, you're going to put it on the edge, and then you're going to fold it down. And then you're going to take a file and you're going to cut that one band off. Keep losing my file for some reason. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to cut the edge that overlaps the bottom. And this is going to allow me to cut the tape. Then I'm going to do it on the edge so that I got nice crisp edges of tape to mark off of. Peel that off. I'm going to do that on both the outside rails. Outside sides of each rail. So again, that's going to be on this side of the rail. That one was a little bit longer than it needed to be. That's okay. Have it. We now have the two rails ready for layout, as you can see. So taking one of the rails, I'm going to take, sorry, I'm not going to put that back in there yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my combination square. I've already set it for 6 millimeters, and that'll compensate for any tape. And I'm going to come in off of the top. Sorry, no, I'm going to come in off the bottom. So again, that looks like this. So I'm coming in on off the bottom. And I'm going to measure approximately 6 millimeters in. See here. Suppose we could put those in. It gives us a better idea of where to put our layout lines. So because I have a little bit of overhang on this side, I'm going to put a rivet on that side, on the far left section of the riser and the C-channel, and then again I'm going to have my cross member right here, so I'm going to come in on the left side, and then again on the tail end it's going to be on the left side. Okay, so that's the depth of where the rivet is going to go into. And I think what I'm going to do is measure, you don't really have to get too technical on this. I'm going to measure, let's say 10 millimeters. No, I can't do that. We'll go 5 millimeters away from the edge of the cross member on the first two, and then we're going to kind of go in the center on the last. Let's see here. that is 11 millimeters. 11 plus 5 would be 16 millimeters. I'm going to do the same on this one. 16 millimeters. And then I'm going to measure in comes to approximately 90 millimeters. So 95 millimeters for the second one. No, something didn't. Never mind. Scratch that. That puts us to the center, so 95. Let's see here. I should have measured to the other side. I didn't. So that's 112 plus 5, sorry. So that comes to 117, guys and girls. Alright, so I'm just going to forget that line. 117 millimeters, which looks good to me. Scribble out that line. And then for the next one, let's see here. I don't have a long enough tape measure or combination square. So for the next one, the hole location is approximately 193 millimeters. And then I'm going to split the difference, 193 plus, looks to me like 5 millimeters, so 193 plus 2.5 millimeters. 193, so that's going to be about 195. Let's go with the 196 for the sake of convenience. 196. For this one I said 6. Measuring off the bottom side. There we have it. We now have all 6 of our cross member hole locations marked out. We can now come in with a center punch, dimple each of these holes, and then what you'll want to do is you'll want to put your risers back in where they're supposed to be, clamp things tight, and then do your drilling. I did mention that on the swing shackle, I may drill out my single holes to 4 millimeters so I can put a brass bushing in. and then that'll become my wear part. But if you don't have any brass bushing that'll fit a 4mm hole and accept a 3mm screw, then just leave your hole at 3mm. This hole will be a little bit wider than it needs to be, but it's not going to ruin your build. I'm just going to take my risers and I'm going to put them in the middle of the C-channel, so that it gives it a little bit of a backing plate to help with the center punch. Doing my best to make sure everything is in the center crosshairs. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a general location for the rivets to go through. As long as your rivets aren't lining up for the rivets that come through the top deck. If they do, then you'll have issues. At some point, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to, when we drill through these plates, the rivets are going, we're going to have to create some clearance for the rivets to come through so that these can sit down in the channels properly. You may or may be able to do it just with the drill bit, but keep in mind that you can break a drill bit when you're drilling through two plates like that. It can bind up and create issues for you. So we'll see how I go about doing that here in a second. So now that I got all my channels laid out and dimpled, they're ready to receive the drill bits to put the holes into it. And I've given it some thought. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp each of these individually, both the plates inside the rails. I'm going to clamp them this way on both ends. I'm going to drill my holes, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop our rivets in. And by doing that, it should sandwich everything tightly, as tight as it needs to be, so that when we do drill through our top deck into the rails, you shouldn't have issues with your drill bit binding up and breaking on you. So I'm just going to take that set of rails, I'm going to put the one set to the side. I'm going to take a flat object, I'm going to butt it up to the edge, and then taking one set of my parallel clamps, I'll come over to this side here. Again, you got to keep in mind you got 3 pieces here, so make sure all your components are butt up to your flat surface there. Which mine don't appear to be. If you're having troubles, it might be a good idea to take one of your screws and just pop it in a hole. Doesn't hurt to do multiples. Now that I got that one tight. Okay. I'm just going to go on the end. I'm going to make sure that my plates are down to the bottom, which they are on both sides. They're butted down. So that means I can now drill my holes here, here, and here. I don't have to worry about my holes being misaligned if I were to drill the plate separately from the rails themselves. I'm going to drill these holes off camera, and then I'm going to do the second set, perhaps on camera. I don't have enough of these clamps out to follow through with getting everything prepped at the same time. I failed to mention that the drill bit size that you're going to require is going to be a 1/8 inch drill bit to drill out these 3 holes in the rails themselves. These holes for the top risers for you to receive your suspension components, that is supposed to be 3 millimeters. If not, if you have brass, then the rear swing hole will be 4 millimeters. I did mention that part, but I forgot to mention that I'm using rivets in my chassis rails, so you want a 1/8 inch drill bit for a 1/8 inch rivet. Now that I have the 3 1/8 inch holes drilled out, I'm going to come in with a file. I'm just going to clean up I'll have to move my clamp there for that one, but I'm going to clean up the burrs on the rail itself. And then now this is a complete set. It's important to keep these 3 components together. If you're not going to rivet them right away, which I'm not, I'm just going to set them to the side. Probably put them back in the trailer itself. This way everything stays put. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to drill this one on camera. Okay. Making sure my drill bit is clean. For whatever reason, this drill bit loads up real bad with chips. My 3 millimeter, it did pretty good. Try to find the easiest way to hold this. And one last hole to drill. 3 holes drilled out. I can now take a file, clean up the edges. There we have it. I can now release the clamps, hold everything together, set that to the side, and get rid of my drill press.